Welcome to the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcast, please follow, hit the like button, or any subscribes. It really helps us with the algorithms. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is produced by the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. All opinions are those of the speakers. We invite you to join us on the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF for more fun. Now, let's get on with this installment of Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody to the 43rd Santa Cruz Coffee Break. And today we have with us Joe Summers, Joe Smothers.
I get that all the time.
Yeah, and I can just laugh. I could laugh about it. It's okay.
I love it.
And Joe has graciously given us his time today to share some stories of Doc and Merle and Sam, and coming from Merle Fest and what it's like to be a performing folk musician in 2022. So welcome, Joe. Great to have
Richard,
you.
thank you so much, Ted. So good to see you guys. It's a pleasure to be on. It was a crash course, of being around, true legends, and no guitar duo I ever heard ever played like Doc and Merle. It was flawless. It was like a machine, like a sewing machine, between Doc's flat picking and Merle's finger picking. And of course they could both flat and finger pick and bottleneck and banjo and mandolin. So just, a wonderful experience for, 24, 25-year-old kid.
Yeah. I have to introduce Joe Summers here, as I realized that I had not hit the recording button, and don't feel bad because I did it to Happy. I did it to Happy too. And I guess I'm just a little bit overwhelmed by it. So I'm really sorry about that, folks. And I'm gonna bring you in right at the middle of Joe's talk about working with Doc in the early 70s. And Merrill and coming out of Boone. I love App State, by the way. It's one of my favorite places. I have a couple really good friends there.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him in the late, I want to say it was 1967, at the Old Town School of Folk Music, just by himself. And Rita Coolidge opened for him.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I just was going to go home and burn my guitar.
Yeah.
Even at that, his prowess of the instrument was so unbelievable. It was just
amazing to watch him. When we traveled before we did a tour of Japan in 76, Doc had a pretty big fear of flying. So we had a Winnebago we would travel in. So we would take off from Deep Gap, North Carolina, take off to, San Francisco or Seattle or wherever we were playing. And that's a whole lot of time sitting in a Winnebago listening to Doc play, talking to him, just getting to know each other well. So what an experience for me.
Yeah, unbelievable.
One thing we didn't really ask about was, when did you pick up the guitar? What led you to pick up the guitar? How did you get started in music?
Good question. Yeah, I'm a little guy. I'm 5'2", kind of like I'm a little bit taller than Paul Simon and brother too. But my mom said, well, son, one of these days you're going to have to attract a woman. And you probably won't do it on a basketball court or a football field. I'd always had an interest in,
You fell for that. You'll meet girls if you play the guitar line.
That's the only way you play them. I mean, that's the only reason to put your fingers through what you put them through. And when I was teaching, that was, kid, why do you want to do this? Well, I want to be a star. No, man, you want the girls. But she took me down to a pawn shop and got me a little tenor guitar, a little Stella tenor. And at the time I was in the Kingston Trio too. So, I had the little 4-string and graduated to a 6-string. I never knew how much more complicated a 6-string was than a 4-string, but it was. And I think the first song I ever learned, and this was back when you couldn't do, a YouTube search or, anything about tunings or right hand patterns, anything like that. You had the old 33 LP that you put the needle down on, pull it back up, put it back. And the first one that I really got was 500 Miles by Peter, Paul and Mary. just that arpeggio and D of 4-3-2-1, and I was hooked. And from there, of course, Paul Simon as a player, the album Sounds of Silence had so much incredibly good stuff, and that's where one of the tunes on there, Angie, the old thing by Davy Graham from England, kind of led me down that path of who is Davy Graham, and then who is Bert Jansch on Lucky 13, who also recorded Angie, and then, you know, listening to Pentangle, getting, you know, in with Renborn, and I think one of the greatest bassists in the world, Danny Thompson, Terry Cox on drums, and Jackie McShee, great singer. So it's just following, you know, it's like a maze. You go down thing, you might find it back then, you know, because there was no Google search. You just kind of really had to do the research if you were that interested in it. And I was, and I still love it.
So did you have good record stores and such in the area where you could find all these artists? Or?
Oh, Lord, no. I lived in a town of 6,000 people. I remember, you know, you could get things like Simon and Garfunkel, but I remember being in a record store when I was 15. I think I was 15, but it was when songs of Leonard Cohen came out. And it was back in the old days when they would spin a new record over the system at a record store, and you'd have something playing. And I'll never forget, Suzanne was playing. I'd never heard anything that sounded that way. The darkness of the chords that he was playing, the voice. And I hitchhiked back the next day and bought the record. I didn't have enough to buy it that day, and from then on, I was hooked with Cohen. You know, you know, that type of thing. But no, you had to go to Raleigh to get the good records.
Yeah. That would be a good distance, I guess. I don't really know the area around there, but
no, about 50 miles.
Okay,
So
okay.
Back then, people would pick you up when you're hitchhiking. That's before I grew my hair out, and then you weren't picked up much.
So when did you first go out and start playing yourself and performing?
I started. Well, I didn't start, but three of us started a little trio called the Newport Trio. Yeah, Newport, Rhode Island. And the first gig I ever played, we were playing on top of a boxcar down at the rail station in Dunn for an air conditioner sale. So they had a little stage set up way up on top of this boxcar. And I can tell you, getting a guitar up that ladder on top of that thing was a real feat. We got up there and we played. I think all the people that were there, I think both people really enjoyed what we did. There weren't many folks out there in the hot of the day watching for, you know, three kids playing on top of a boxcar, but I got hooked and kind of went from there, you know, playing little sock hops, you know, at our high school hut, you know, where after the football games, we had a little rock band. We played Beatles stuff and just have fun. The football players to be too banged up to dance or even come. So we kind of had the pick of the litter. You know, that's when I realized again how important music is.
That's a great story. I'm glad it worked for you.
It did. I found my wife in 1971 at Appalachian State. She had come to hear T. Michael Coleman, who also ended up with, was in the band I was with. We were doing a duo and she came to the coffee house and I saw her and I said, whoa, man, who is that? And I asked around and said, well, she's a freshman from Miami, Florida. And we didn't have a whole lot of Miami people at App State back then. But I knew she was a freshman and she had to be in either one of two dorms. And I had a sock full of dimes. So I just started calling each floor, you know, you go to the door. Party from Miami on this floor. And finally I found her. And I said, I'm that cute little guitar player you saw Friday night. Oh, hey, would you like to go out? She said, I'd love to. So we've been together ever since. And to be celebrating, well, been together 50 years now, 46 years marriage, and this coming July. So it's just been such a gift. She's my rider. We go together everywhere. I don't do any trips without her anymore. It kind of manages me out there, takes care of things that, you know, I might not want to take care of, you know, merchandise or, you know, just getting the schedules right of when you need to be where. And she's just, you know, she's as tired as I am today from being at Merle Fest for 4 days, but hooked up with so many old friends, just wonderful, just great.
That's
That's fantastic. Congratulations, first of all, on
Richard, yeah.
You know,
It's a struggle. I mean, it's just saying I do don't make it, but I didn't say I think I do. I said I do, and I will. And there are ups and downs, and you got to be friends before you can be anything else. You got to really respect that person. And now at our age, we're starting to take care of each other. Oh, make sure your pants are zipped. Make sure your blouse is buttoned, and other things, that old people tend to do. Sometimes don't think about it. But she's become just a tremendous cheerleader of mine. I gave up music back in the mid '80s just because I was on the road all the time, and it was no longer fun being away. I just had a daughter, so I had a son that was 3 and a new daughter, and I was in Key West doing 6 weeks down there with a group, and I just said, "Man, I'm done. I'm coming home." So I wanted to make sure those kids called me daddy instead of somebody else, because it's just hard to maintain a relationship when she's doing all the work back home, and we didn't have heating and air conditioning, so she was running a wood stove and teaching school and raising kids. So I made the right move, got out of it, and still played my guitar every day, but got out of it for the right reasons, I think. And now I'm so much better now than I was back then. And I'm a big believer in, going to seminars. There's so many great tools, Richard, that you can use to become a better player. And I'd mentioned Martin Simpson earlier. I know at one point, he had, did some guitars with Santa Cruz, and he's probably my favorite player. The way he plays his right hand, the open tunings, it's almost banjo-y the way he plays. But I heard a great guitarist in St. Augustine named Sam Passetti, who's a tremendous player. And he was doing a thing called Shawneetown. He said, well, that's a Martin Simpson arrangement of this old tune about the Ohio River, a little town called Shawneetown down on the eastern point of Illinois. And I said, I don't know what it is, but that's how I want to play the guitar. After all these years, I'm ready to change. So I was lucky enough when Doc passed in 2012, Nancy Covey, who at the time was married to Richard Thompson, and I knew Nancy back from McCabe's days down in Santa Monica when she was, booking the acts there at McCabe's. And we had done a tour with her as a producer. And when Doc passed away, we'd been in touch over the years, but she said she was going to come to Boone for the funeral. And I said, well, don't book a room. I've got a friend who's going to lend me his pilot and plane. I'm going to fly in Sunday. I had to play Saturday night. But I'll get in touch with a good friend of mine who will pick you up at the airport in Charlotte, wherever, unless you want to rent a car. But you can stay with her. She got a nice place. I've already spoken to her. She said she would love to have you. And that way you've kind of got an introduction of not knowing anybody there. And we were talking, and I said, man, Richard I'm getting ready to go to a camp, one of Yorma's camps with Pierre Bensoussan, who I absolutely love his playing. And she says, matter of fact, this year in July in 2012, Richard's got a camp in Big Indian, New York called Frets and Refrains. Would you be interested in coming? I said, oh God, yeah. And also, he said, but also we have instructor Martin Simpson, which, that was it for me. Not only would I get to, sit down and listen to him and talk to him and eventually just become great friends, but, just experience better players, top of the food chain for me. Sean Colvin also was at the first camp, which I think is a tremendous songwriter and really good songwriting instructor. Gives you a lot of ideas of how to further just an idea into, something that would be viable to play or record. So these camps have just been great. I'm not going back to Frets and Refrains this year, but I'm going down to Sanibel, Florida in September to one of Jorma Kalkinen's satellite, week long. It's either up in Pomeroy, Ohio, but he does 2 weeks in Florida, and he's instructing one in September, which I'm going to go to, which, I've always liked I kind of look at it as primitive fingerstyle playing, although it's not primitive, it's really hard to do. Gary Davis, Blind Blake, Jorma, happy, to an extent. But sitting down with him for a week and learning from him the best. And I've met Yorma numerous times at Merle Fest when he would play there, and we would have breakfast together, or spend a little bit of time. But I'm really looking forward to spending a week and just at 71, I'm still grateful to have a body that still does it. I had carpal tunnel on my right hand surgery or release about 2 years ago, which scared me to death, because I remember I did some touring with Leo Kottke back in the 80s with Jack Lawrence. We were his supporting act on some shows. And I know the problem that he went through with carpal tunnel. And it screwed his hand up, for years. And naturally, I didn't realize that it had come so far, with a scope tool now that, it's roughly an 8-minute surgery. Bruises you, but only a couple of stitches. But Lord, I was playing the next day for a few minutes, just making sure everything would still do what it would do and it didn't hurt. And so other than that, at 71, I'm singing better than I've ever sang. I feel like I'm finally learning the phrasing. I listen to a lot of Sinatra. If you listen to Sinatra, you're going to learn how to phrase a song. And to me, that's what sells it. Daryl Scott, I saw Saturday, is one of the best at relating us, the song through, his vocals. Not only does he have a great vocal range, but and incredibly gifted skills on the piano, guitars, just about anything. And he plays piano like Larry Knechtel did from the Wrecking Crew, like on Bridge Over Troubled Water. He started his set Saturday with a gospel tune. I know his dad was a minister, but I swear you'd think Larry Knechtel had come back from the grave, was up there playing that piano, but it was just phenomenal. You hear good stuff. And, I got up about 5:30 this morning after driving yesterday, spent 3 hours with a guitar. It's just what you do. I couldn't wait to get out of the car and start playing. And just glad I can.
That first of all, your desire to continue to keep learning. And I think, I know I've just started studying with somebody in the past year.
Right.
And it's intense, and I thought I was okay, and he's taken me down about, 45 pegs. And,
right.
and yet I realize every time I pick up an instrument that I'm hearing or I'm relating what I'm learning.
Right.
Every time I play.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, that's satisfying.
Absolutely. It's everything. It's why I get up in the morning.
Yeah. Are you teaching now or?
Excuse me. I no longer teach. I just really don't have the time. And I couldn't teach row your boat or those things to beginners anymore. It just, I did have some advanced students that truly got it. As a teacher, I'm aware that roughly 80% of the people that pick up a guitar today is not going to be playing it within 6 months. They're just not. They don't realize the pain, especially to your left fingers, the pads until you pad up, get calluses, where your soft skin is. Until you get that, it's going to hurt every time you pick it up. It just does. And, just tell them if you love it enough, you'll do it. And if you don't, you won't, and you'll find something else to do with your life. But I've had two that have really stuck it out. One got a really great full ride to Belmont in Nashville, and she's a recording artist now, and tremendous player, singer, writer. So proud of Kaylee. She really took it. She had the desire. You could look at her and know that fire in her eyes of I want to learn more. How do you do that? What's going on here? She just it wasn't just, well, I can see you didn't practice since last week. Well, no, but I played a lot of Guitar Hero. So, well, that really doesn't count when it comes to the real guitar. So a lot of frustration in teaching, I got to say.
I'm intrigued when you come back from a place like Merle Fest and you sit down and you say you play guitar for 3 hours. Do you have a routine that you normally go through when you sit down and play, or were you just trying to run through everything that you were remembering? Or,
a couple of things like that, Ted. Yeah, there were some songs, a couple of things that I heard. I'm a big fan of the Wood Brothers. I don't know whether they're big out there. Oliver Wood and Chris Wood. they did a great set Friday. I knew Oliver from a band he was in from Atlanta called King Johnson, which was the best unsigned band that never got to be big as far as I'm concerned. They were a cross between the band mixed in with the Tower of Power. Horn section, but absolutely some of the grittiest, just great songs. I mean, just like, you know, they wrote with the band back then. But I saw Oliver, I haven't seen him in a while. Hey, Valdosta. I said, yes, sir, man. Good to see you, brother. And they played some things that I said, well, I was watching his hand. He plays an old Guild electric. Just the guitar is like an old friend. In fact, let me tell you one thing that happened there that really was cool. When Doc and Merle both were gone, there were numerous guitars, including like a 57 gold top Les Paul, a lot of really nice guitars that just kind of disappeared. No pointing fingers, no, they were just gone. And I remember Merle had a Gallagher G40, and I think there were only 2 or 3 of those made. And Merle's daughter, Karen, who I absolutely adore, naturally his son Richard passed away back in 2013. But Karen found the old G40 in the Mark Leaf case. And they had it at the Gallagher, at the booth, the Gallagher booth. And got new people running Gallagher now, and they're just doing an incredible job with these guitars. And word was sent to me, they got something over Gallagher you might want to see. So I went over there, and sure enough, man, opened up that Mark Leaf case, and there was that G40. Merle had taken a rose stick-on embroider type thing, gum side, and put it right under the G. And we were all like, oh, why would you do that? I mean, God, this thing's beautiful. But it was right there, and it was so, I get choked up. It was like seeing an old friend that I hadn't seen, and the ghost was back. Then he handed me the guitar and just embraced it, played a song, and just had to stop. But very emotional to see that guitar that I haven't seen since his death in '85. Guitars are such magic things, and there's something inside every one of them. Sometimes it takes a while to find what it is, the sounds. And you guys make superb guitars. I got a 12 fret Eric Sky, and I wish it had suited my hand better. My left, I've got little bitty hands, and I never could get used to the neck. But it absolutely one of the best sounding guitars I've ever had. And my hat's off to Mr. Hoover. You guys make some of the best guitars in the world.
Well,
and that's hard.
You can speak to Mr. Hoover about that neck problem. And you can make one that will suit you perfectly. And we'd love to have you out here.
This time I'll go out to the 13 frets. I've got a 13 fret, and I know Happy just had a 13 fret, and that thing is incredible. I think that extra fret, I do use a capo, for positioning and using chords that I like notes within. So I think I'd move on out to the 13th fret, or maybe the 14th. But yeah, I can see a Santa Cruz in my future, and I still use your strings. Best string ever.
Are you using the low tensions or the mediums?
Mediums.
And what about, have you tried the DADGAD? Have you tried the drop tuning?
Oh God, yeah, I use DADGAD, DADFAD.
No, I mean, have you tried the strings?
No, I didn't know there was any.
Yeah, they just released them. They just released. We'll get you some.
Oh, I got to have that, because I use probably 80% of my show are in either C suspended 2, DADGAD, open G with a low C note. There's just so many tunings, and if you use open tunings, I talk to a lot of people who don't use them, and they say, "Man, how do you do that?" And I immediately tell them I practice tuning the guitar. When I'm working through a set, when I knew what I was doing, I knew that I'd be going from, first song I did in one set was a drop D. I did Bees Wing by Richard Thompson, and then up to standard tuning for a new tune I wrote about a dream I had where Blind Willie McTell and Hank Williams showed up out at my fire pit outside and just hanging around. But from there, down to a C suspended 2. So, that is C, G, C, G, C, D, the D suspended note. So I spent almost as much time practicing how quick can I get there to where I'm not looking at a tuner. I want to hear it. because especially if there's a major third in it, like in an open D tuning, I'm going to hear it one way. Richard's going to hear it another way. Martin Simpson will hear it a different way. That major third is just kind of like the B string on a guitar. It's just never quite where it needs to be for all of them. So you just kind of practice it. But if people are doing open tunings, practice going from one tuning to another once you decided what you're going to play and what tunings you're going to use, because it really helped me. I mean, I was there, 40 seconds, I was retuned to another tune. And that's important, especially when you're on stage with Peter Rowan and Sam Bush and Jerry Douglas. I mean, people like that. I don't want to be sitting there fiddling with those knobs for, a minute. It's got to be under a minute, ready to fly.
I really admire the guys who are able to be on stage, tune their guitar to an alternate tuning, and talk to the audience at the same time.
You've got to do that.
Skill.
That's juggling cats.
and
you got to have good fresh strings too. Strings have got to be you.
Well, and talking about all these tunings and such, how many guitars do you have, and how many does your wife think you have?
That's a great question. The last guitar I got was maybe 3 months ago. I don't know whether you're familiar with Jason Romero. He's a banjo builder up in Horsefly, British Columbia. But he and his wife, Ferris, are an incredible duo, kind of like Gillian Welch and David Rawlings. But he makes what a lot of people consider the best banjo you can buy. Now, to get one of Jason Romero's banjos, twice a year he'll have a lottery, and you put your money up front, you get on this list, and if your name is picked or your number is picked, he makes a specific number. Now, right now, if I ordered, or I wanted banjo, it would be 11 years before I got it. So I knew, and they had a really bad fire up there in 2016. Martin Simpson kind of turned me on to the Romeros and what they do, what they play and what they build. And I know he was building some resonators back before the fire in 2016. He no longer builds those. They just, he doesn't have the time, with everything else that's going on. They also tour, and they're absolutely incredible. But I found a 2015 resonator out in Seattle. I always am doing a search on Romero resonator, and finding one popped up that wasn't already sold. That I've never seen a guitar like it. It's all maple, but it's almost tiger striped. The way he shaded it, and the neck, and it almost looks like a Stradivarius the way they've done it. But I showed it to numerous people at Merle Fest, and they were absolutely fascinated. One guy said, "I don't know how you got that Romero, but I certainly would not get rid of it." But you run into things like that. But I think right now I've got 8 guitars. But I use a Maiden on stage because of the electronics. Their systems, it's a plug in and play. I know there are a lot of great systems. The old days, Barkus Berry, really about the best we had back then before Frapp came out. But on stage, you're going to hear what the electronics sound like. I've heard Tommy Emmanuel talk about that, and said, "Yeah, you're not really hearing my guitar. You're hearing the electronics that's vibrating through this into the speaker. So the electronics are really important, for a stage guitar. So I use a Maiden Messiah, a little small-bodied guitar that it's just great."
We're seeing more and more and more small bodies. We did an interview a couple of weeks ago with Charlie Raw,
right,
out of New York, and his stuff is just tiny. I mean, the instruments are just literally tiny,
right,
and they're really voiced big.
Yeah,
and it's a lot easier to carry around.
It's easier. I kind of feel like COVID-19. I think all 19 is between my belly button and below my breast area. 19 pounds that I've gained during this COVID-19 thing. And again, it's like playing an ovation. But I was a jumbo guy for years. I still got an old Guild F50 from 75. It's just so pretty now. It was Gil's answer to the J200 that Gibson had. And Graham Parsons, I was a really big fan of Brewer and Shipley. And they all played these F50s. And I had to have one. But I mean, I look like a midget, with a guitar. I think it's still huge, and I still have it. And it's still a great guitar.
They weigh about 40 pounds too, don't they?
Absolutely. It is. Yeah, it's plywood. I mean,
Yeah,
no
heavy.
Yeah.
Great. Bonnie Raitt plays one.
She does. Yes, she sure does.
A lot of them are around there. They're the guild you want to have.
Absolutely. And Richie Havens, a huge fan of Richie's too.
Yeah.
Was always a guild guy.
Yeah, I kind of grew up in a town west of Chicago, and the only guitar store we had, the only line they had was Guild.
Right.
So my first one was an M20 that I waited 6 weeks for, and, it's just I'd go downstairs to the store every day, is it here yet, but
was that the model Dick Drake had on one of his albums? Pink Moon?
Yeah. I thought it was a really nice sounding guitar, but it was small, and I thought, well, I can't play a small guitar. I'm kind of a big guy, and so is Tad. I couldn't play it. No, I'd look silly playing that thing. I'm like, I wish I had it now.
Yeah.
But, well, you answered a whole bunch of questions about strings and capos and slides and how you amplify on stage. I know it's a big thing right now. Everybody's working around one microphone, and that's personally I think it's a really amazing way to do it. But there are times when a microphone up there is just trouble.
Absolutely. And most of the places I play are small places. I've got a Ear Trumpet Labs Edwina that I like a lot. I saw the Milk Carton Kids maybe 3 years ago at Merle Fest, and one of the guys from Ear Trumpets was there, and he really liked the way I sang. Would you be interested in an Edwina? I said, oh Lord, yeah. It wasn't a gift, but I got a really good deal on one, and it is an extraordinary microphone. And although I still use my electronics on the guitar, it still picks up acoustically too, from that mic if I got it right where it needs to be. But yeah, you got to be careful because it picks up everything else around you too.
Charlie was using one of those for recording, and I did a bunch of stuff with Jamie Stillway, and we had two of them. They were really incredible sounding microphones. I'd like to get my hands on one.
I love Jerry uses one too for his dobro.
Yeah, they just don't show up.
Yeah.
They're kind of hard to find.
Yeah.
Desert island music.
Say that again.
Desert island music.
Cool. Desert Island.
Five. You can take 5 records.
Leonard Cohen's first album, Songs of Leonard Cohen. Sounds of Silence, Simon and Garfunkel. Doc Watson's first album, just Doc Watson. That's Joni Mitchell's first album, Song to a Seagull. That's 4. And
there's got to be a Sinatra in there.
Any of the it was a very good year. Absolutely extraordinary song. First time I heard it was the Kingston Trio doing it. But when Sinatra did it, he did it old enough in life to where you knew he went through each one of these phases of, and now, my life's like wine, poured from the dregs. And anything by Sinatra, I'm a huge fan of Blind Willie McTell too. I really love Thompson George's Willie McTell. I got to have a blues one in there somewhere. So I'm going to say John Hurt. John Hurt Today, I think, is a great record. There's one of my cats coming up and say, hi, this is Levon Elvis. Hey, Levon.
Good name.
And Levon Costello and of course, Levon Helm.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we missed Tad's got his, I don't know if Pepper's there.
Hey, Pepper.
Pepper's Harper's wandering around here somewhere. I gave her an extra spoonful of the wet food to make sure that she'd be very happy and hopefully stay somewhat asleep.
Well, there's Thackeray Binks. We got a black cat we adopted about 2 years ago, called him Binks, of course, from Hocus Pocus. He's up here on the couch. They were glad to see us yesterday. We had to put them in 5 days, to make sure they were taken care of, and they're glad to get back. Glad we were back.
I don't know. My ex-wife had a cat, and thinks 20 pounds, and slept between my legs every night. As far up between my legs as he could get. So I'm a little cat phobic on that. But boy, they're so
pole.
Yeah, they get so they're so aloof, and then all of a sudden you go away from them for a few days, and they're your best friends. So short memories, I guess. I don't know.
So how much time do you spend on the road these days? I mean,
not much. I do some shows in Florida. We've got a condo down in Cortez, Florida, which is over on the West Coast, over near Sarasota, which I like that. I've got about 4 places I play down there. Most of what I do is local stuff. I do not like the road. I've been offered to do some things with other people, and I've just chosen not to do it. I just driving all day yesterday and getting back, I don't have to go anywhere. I've got a couple of local gigs the next 2 weeks, and then going down to Florida to play a couple of things, around the town, where we have the condo. So sometimes I'll do 5 gigs in a week, and sometimes I'll do 1 gig in 5 weeks. It just depends on what I'm interested in doing and kind of what I'm doing. If I'm working on music. And again, right now, I'm not playing music for other people. I'm playing it for me at my age of writing things that probably will never get heard. I'm going to start a new project in June down in Florida. I've got some new things I'd like to record. But it's kind of a me now thing, to where I don't have to do what Jerry and Sam and Peter and these guys, God bless them for doing what they do. I couldn't do that. Or Richard Thompson, he's gone all the time. And that's not what I want to do now. I don't have to do it. Financially, I don't have to get out and do it. So
that's wonderful.
I'm blessed. Blessed.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What do you think the best piece of advice you ever got was? What would you give?
Probably, when Paul McCartney told me never to name drop. I stole that from Richard Thompson. Great advice. I've heard, well, I always make sure you're in tune before you hit the first chord. If you've got, you depend on the degree of what you're playing. If I'm playing a pizza parlor, and there's nothing wrong with playing pizza parlors. That's where one of my favorite songwriters, Paul Thorne, was found in a pizza parlor in Tupelo, Mississippi. Wherever you're playing, play like, if there are only 2 people there, play to them. You never know. One of them might be somebody like Michael O'Mardian, who heard Christopher Cross, the story I heard in some Holiday Inn lounge, and just said, geez, I know you're a great guitar player, from some studio work in LA, but I had no idea, you need to record these things. So you never know who's listening. Take every gig seriously. If you drink, don't drink till you finish playing. Nobody wants to see a drunk stumbling around up there and acting stupid. Nobody wants to see that. So prepare your shows, no matter what they are. Make sure you're in tune. And if you can't warm up, pick, some of the easier stuff to start with. Don't start in on something, like I think B Swing is extremely complicated right hand song, just because of the triplicates that's in it. So, unless you're warmed up, you don't want to start with something that's really going to tax your hands or your voice. Kind of ease into it. And if I could say, well, I saw Paul Simon on his farewell tour. It's the only time I ever saw him, and never got to meet him, we were playing in New York at a place called the Bottom Line, and I thought I saw Paul Simon, and I gushed, went over to him and introduced myself. You know, he was there to hear us play, and he said, "No, I'm Eddie. I'm Paul's brother. I'm the nice one. You really don't want to meet that son of a bitch." I laughed, but I saw Paul in Tampa on the last leg of his tour, and he started the night out with America by himself with I think a 12-string maybe. And I was about to cry 30 seconds into it that it was so bad. He couldn't hit the notes. He was not prepared to start that show off with that song. And I turned to my wife and said, this absolutely breaks my heart. And within 2 songs, he was great. He got into some things from later on, and it was a great show, but he picked the wrong song to start with, I thought. So, picking the right one to get your feet wet, I think is really, really important, no matter where you're playing, if that makes sense.
That's amazing. And that's a tremendous advice. It's just all respect for the audience.
Absolutely. If you don't respect them, they're sure not going to respect you back.
That's. Do you do anything outside of music?
Well, I sold caskets for 18 years for Batesville Casket Company. It was a great job, and I really enjoyed going from music to taking the earrings out, coat and tie, meeting funeral directors and funeral service industry people who are, there's call to doing what they do as ministers are called to the altar. It's, it's a hard job. It's a job with a lot of tears. But when I got out of it, I was glad. I was kind of taking me away from all this death thing when I retired from it. And I did really well with them and made good put away money. Right now, I live in the same town with my son, who's an extremely good guitar player. I played in a band with him down here for about 5 years. He was with us. So we get together and play every now and again. But I've got a daughter that lives here with her husband, and a son lives here with his wife, and my granddaughter, Caroline, who I love dearly. So a lot of what I do is mostly what I do now is play. If I'm sitting down, now my wife and I have taken different bedrooms. At our age, we know where each other sleeps, but I'm insomniac to the nth degree. Thank God for Benadryl. I can take 2 and have a really good night's sleep. Although the dreams are somewhat funky, but I like that. It's kind of like getting on a bus, knowing where you're going when you close your eyes. But, I do like to get up in the morning. If I've got, something that's coming up that is going to take my attention, like Merle Fest, I spend a lot of time working on what I'm going to do, making sure the other musicians know what, this is the part of the show. These are the tunes I'm doing. These are the keys. You can listen to, Tom Jones doing Tower of Song. It's along that line. But I spend a lot of time playing it and practicing and doing the songs over and over, working on the tunings, making sure that I can seamlessly go from song to song to where when I walk off stage, I can say, yep, I did all I could for it. And so I'm just really centered in music right now, completely.
How wonderful!
And I love it. I'm so blessed.
How wonderful!
Yep.
Ted.
I'm impressed with just how seriously you take music. When there's an awful lot of other people I've played with or met or talked to, who they're very much into the fun of it and everything else. But I think that you've pretty much nailed it, that if you really want to do it, it's a question of really working at it.
You've got to really do it. Yeah. You've got to decide. And again, coming back to the camps, I heard Martin Simpson talk about that. If you're taking it to, which I was one of the only people in the class that were a performance level musician. But, he just made the point of, if you're going to entertain people with what you're doing, you need to be prepared to entertain them, tunings. There comes my wife. Hey, baby, say hi.
Hi.
Head down in here.
How are you?
We're good. How are you? We're
Nice to
way
meet-
over here. Nice to meet you.
Got you. Nice to meet you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
She's been with a granddaughter.
That's the best.
Absolutely. Oh man, we just
That's the best. Joe, it took a while for us to get connected, and I'm so glad we did.
Me too, Richard.
What
Excellent.
what
And
a what
Best.
yeah, what a wonderful experience. You never really know going into these things what's going to come out, and
Sure. Yeah.
and boy, your sincerity and your respect and dedication and everything for this wonderful gift.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yep. And it's a gift. I don't take it lightly. And I thank God every night for it. Like old Dan, morning, noon, and night, I'll thank him for things I got. So it's good.
Well, I look forward to you coming out here to the West Coast, maybe spend a little time with the maestro, Mr. Hoover, and talk to
I
him
would
about
love
those modifications you need made to Eric Sky.
We can get him some. We should
Big-
try to get him
You'll
some work
break
out
it.
here.
There we
I'm
go.
sorry.
Try to get you some work out here. Bring you out. Make it worth your time.
I really enjoy house concerts. Before COVID, I was staying pretty busy with those. Chapel Hill, up to North Carolina, and they're really interesting. I tell a lot of stories about songwriters. I don't just do folk type stuff. I'm a huge Drifters fan. What the Drifters did back in New York, back when Doc Thomas, was writing a lot of music for people like them and Elvis. But that genre of music is just, it works great in a single acoustic open tune guitar. Man, you can do a lot of great stuff on it. But my shows can include Sinatra, Drifters, Elvis. I can do a whole night of originals. I'd do a whole set of Simon and Garfunkel or Leonard Cohen, the Beatles. Do a lot of Beatles things, open tune, kind of like the way Richie Havens, took a Beatles tune and turned it into just something entirely different than what they did. And that's what's fun. If you're not writing a song today, arrange something. Find something.
Well,
Keep moving. Keep those
if you
feet
ever make it
going.
out here to the Bay Area, I guarantee you I got a place for you to play, and I would love to arrange it. So let us know
I
if you
would
make
love
it out
that.
here.
Mama, crank up that car, honey. We're going to California. Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah, we gotta get you on our radio station, our local radio station. We have K-Pig, which was literally the first station in the country to stream.
Right.
They have been solid Americana for forever. And before COVID, they did a live Sunday show every Sunday, 10 to 12.
Right.
They think they did 1,100 of them, and COVID kind of shut it all down because the studio is the size of a gas station, cash registers area.
Right.
That's about as big as the studio is. And so it was a little too close for everything to do, but get you out here and
Oh yeah.
and
That
have
kind of studios Loretti and Dew used to go to. When old Loretta Lynn was a girl. Loretti.
oh yeah, just but it was on the radio.
That's great.
It's on the radio, and that's what it was about. I really appreciate stay on just a little bit afterwards, but I really can't thank you enough for giving up your time today, and you're sharing really your heart.
Richard, thank you so much. Tad, thank you so much, my friend. We plan a trip out west. I'm going to get with you. We'll line up some dates. I'd love it.
I absolutely would enjoy that. Thank you so much for spending a little time with us, and I hope to meet you in person.
We're going to do that.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Thanks a
Y'all
lot.
have a great day.
Have a great day.
Thank
Bye.
you, Richard. Bye, Ted.
We hope you enjoyed this installment of the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. For more music-related fun, please join the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF or SantacruzGuitarPlayers.com. If you have any questions or possible podcast topics, please contact us. If you have a product or service that you feel would be of value to our listeners, please consider adding your support and keeping the coffee pot on. Contact us for more information. We ask that you hit the like, follow, bell, or bookmark buttons so we can keep you informed of upcoming podcast episodes. We hope you enjoyed Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Now it's time to go play your guitar.